Hello, students. Welcome to Analog IAS. First of all, I wish you a very happy new year, and let us start the discussion for this new year with this couple of issues. Today's current affairs, that is 2nd January 2021 current affairs, are as follows. This article titled Look Before You Reform is taken from the Indian Express, and it is in the context of the regulation in higher education. Now, let us understand the broad principles and the necessity for regulation. Why do we need to regulate something? If you take a look at what happened after 1947, there was private sector and at the same time public sector. But the predominant force during this period was the public sector. The reason for this is because of the experience that we have had with the British. However, from 1980s itself, the role of private sector has significantly risen. Similarly, private colleges began to sprout out in various parts of the country, and they have catered in different ways to different segments of population, taking the culture into context. So whenever we talk about unity in diversity, it applies to every aspect of our daily life. Similarly, it applies to education sector as well, because the way in which education is imparted is different in different parts of the country. Now, in order to have a single regulator is difficult because of the ensuing diversity. Now, the Knowledge Commission, National Knowledge Commission in 2007 has studied the various problems of our education sector, and similarly we have had the Yash committee which studied the problems of the education sector, and more recently in 2019 we have had the Kasturi Rangan committee which has studied the entire education sector to come up with a educational policy. Now, based on all these findings, our government has proposed the recent educational policy, the new educational policy or the National Education Policy 2020. This National Education Policy 2020, as far as the aspect of regulation is considered, for the higher education sector, it has considered creating a single body, but it has excluded medical as well as legal fields from the regulation of this regulatory ambit of this body. As a result, the policy envisages the creation of Higher Education Commission of India with 4 independent verticals. So, as per the policy, it envisages a Higher Education Council of India which will have 4 different verticals. This has the National Higher Education Regulatory Council, which is the main body. As already discussed, except for medical and legal education, every other regulatory domain is placed under this NHERC. The second one is accreditation. National Accreditation Council is given more autonomous and powerful version of whatever is existing right now. The details of this are not really important for UPSC, but you just have to understand that it is much more powerful and more autonomy is given. As far as the General Education Council is considered, this is more about deciding the skills and curriculum. We have various vocational skills, and even for graduates, there are certain parameters that are to be considered in the wake of the changing nature of our education system and the times around. So education system has not evolved to the standards expected from the industry. Recently we have had various reports wherein IT firms have complained that a lot of engineering graduates are not worthy of employment because of lack of skills, and they have to spend a lot of money on reskilling them. This is not about the capabilities of the candidates, but rather the backwardness that is associated with our curriculum. In order to address this dynamic need for constant updates in the curriculum, and also in various vocational courses, the minimum standards expected for skills, the National Skills Framework, which is already existing, National Skills Qualification Framework, is aligned with the standards that is envisaged by GEC, and we will be having a framework for each vertical or each skill. Like, say for example, if someone is undertaking a course in plumbing, the General Education Council and the autonomous institutions under it will decide the framework that is needed for the person to clear an exam and have that certificate of skills. Similarly, we have another body called the HEGC, or the Higher Education Grants Council, which is a revamped version of the University Grants Council. However, we have to note one interesting point here. Recently, our budget has come up with HEFA, or Higher Education Financing Agency, which is a non banking financial company for financing the higher education sector. Interestingly, this point was not at all addressed in the entire policy that is brought out by the government recently. So, we are to understand what is the role that HEFA is going to play going forward if HEGC is going to take the lead with respect to financing. At this juncture, we have to understand the conflict and the central argument that is laid down in this article. The very reason why medical and legal domains are left out is because of the complications and the differences in arguments between various domains of the subject. Say, for example, if you take the Ayurveda or any other alternative medicine like homeopathy, Siddha, or even in allopathy, you have a separate regulatory body for dental field. So this indicates that whenever a particular domain has varying interest and varying opinions, regulation becomes all the more difficult. Even though India has a severe shortage of healthcare workers, the need for establishing uniform standards has been a demand for a very long time. But the R&D costs involved and the differences in opinions make it very difficult for allopathic and alternative medicine doctors to work together on common principles. So the very basis of this alternative medicines comes in conflict with the traditional allopathic medicine. Sometimes there are allegations that pharma lobbies will not let Ayurveda flourish. So all this sort of opinions which impact policy should also be addressed. Since it's a very sensitive topic, the national education policy has actually left out medical. Similarly is the case with legal education. It directly comes into conflict with the aspect of separation of powers. Judiciary is not to be decided by the executive. So in order to ensure that separation of powers is respected, this legal education is also left out. Now, when we're talking about the single uniform regulator with the combination of this GEC, similar sort of issues will come up in the future, and we are not sure as to how we can address them. So this sort of oversimplification is actually a attempt to just rearrange the existing problems without actually solving the problem. So this simplification will not actually solve the problem and will not respect this diversity, is the opinion of this article writer. So that is the gist of this article and the background associated. This article, Preserving the Past for the Future, is taken from the Indian Express. Recently, the Indian Institute of Management, that is IIM Ahmedabad, has decided to demolish the dormitories which were built by a legendary American architect, Louis Kahn, on its campus. So, why has this triggered a controversy is the central debate that we are trying to understand, and why it is important to safeguard ancient architecture or heritage architecture. So, this is important from GS1 art and culture perspective, and this is a issue that can be asked because UPSC has a tendency to link present context with the historical perspective. The board of directors have cited that they are trying to bring down at least 14 of the 18 dorms which were built between 1968 to 78 because they were simply beyond redemption. problems of leakages from the roof, dampness in walls, leakage in toilet walls, etc. is because of this. Besides this, the earthquake of 2001 has caused major structural damages to these buildings. These are the reasons cited. So, in a letter to the alumni, the director has justified the demolition and construction of new dorms, which will increase the housing capacity on the campus from 500 to 800. So, in the letter, he also questioned Khan's signature exposed brick structure, calling the bricks as substandard. This is a serious blow because for students of architecture, bringing down these Khan buildings also means that the concept of restoration and also that of conservation, which the modern architecture field stands for, is completely defeated. So, already on the existing campus itself, there are a lot of buildings which are being renovated by a Mumbai based architectural firm which respects this restoration and conservation principles. But the board of directors found out that the restoration was simply not up to the mark. So, in this debate, the institute director has argued that the building committee and the board of governors discussed all the issues. So, he raised certain important questions. Firstly, why do we have to believe that we can't change the past? Secondly, he questioned the future generations' value that they attach to this particular ancient structure. So, this article tries to address these questions. The first problem that the author raises is the concept of cultural heritage. Whenever we think of cultural heritage, we only think about ancient India and medieval India. We do not include those modern architecture of the 20th century, and this is a very dangerous proposition in the present state of capitalism. And the reason cited for that is unless and until we respect our culture, we do not understand the lessons that we have learned. These architectural pieces stand as symbolic expression of the times and hardships that India has gone through in different phases of our journey through this history of time. If we closely observe the elements of Khan's architecture in this IMA building, he included what is relevant. That is, he included natural elements like, say, for example, the author quotes how he has layered the structure and bold openings of cross ventilation to protect from the climate. He respected the difference between individual and community. There are good dorm rooms, and at the same time, shared community spaces are also given importance. The director of the institute has recently cited that a building that is merely half a century old cannot be considered as a heritage. Now, this is the conception with which this author disagrees with because he believes that cultural heritage has got more to do with the context and the message that this structure is trying to give rather than the age of the structure. So, in this article, he vehemently disagrees with the administration of IMA to bring down these buildings and brings out the importance of this cultural heritage and why we should change our national laws with respect to this cultural heritage. So, that is the gist of this article.